The Canon Sure Shot AF7 was released in 1994, which means it's quite a modern, classic plastic point and shoot. In terms of quality, I will compare it to the Olympus AF10, which I used to own. The kind of quality I've got from this camera is quite similar to that, and I rated that quite highly for plastic point and shoot. It is, for me, the cheaper alternative to the now overexpensive, overpriced Yashica T2, Yashica T4, T3, some of the Contax point and shoots, and some of the Olympus point and shoots like the Mu 2. You won't get the same sharpness out of this camera as you would out of some of those cameras, but you can get really, really close. And if the light is right, then I don't think you can tell the difference between some of these cameras. Anyway, I'm going to start with my favorite aspect of this camera, which is the viewfinder. It is very big and very bright with frame guides and parallax guide. It's very clear and very large, which is why it's got that hump on top to create a little bit more space. It's suitable for the elderly, for people that wear glasses. They're really going to enjoy this camera. Because the viewfinder's position is right on top of the actual lens, the amount of parallax error you're going to get is much less than you would get with normal film point and shoot. So the parallax guide is really, really accurate. I've got really, really perfect composition with this camera. What I expected was pretty much what I got. It's not like looking through the lens, but it's as close as you're going to get. So in the viewfinder, you have a green LED that lights up when you lock focus. So if you're too close to your subject and it can't find the focus, it won't light green. So most other point and shoots will just take the picture. Talking about being too close, the minimum focusing distance for this camera is 0.8 meters. So if you've got long arms like me, you can actually get away with taking selfies that way. Otherwise, it's got a tripod mount right next to the battery door, and you can mount that on a tripod and use the self timer, which is one of the dials here. I'll talk about that later. Right, it's a fully automatic 35mm film camera, so it's very, very easy to use. The shutter release is on top here, and it's right next to the frame counter. Talking about the shutter release, the shutter speeds that you get with this camera is one of its limitations. It goes from 1/45 seconds to 1/180 seconds. So basically, it's got a really limited range for which it can expose for. The light meter is also expecting you to use ISO film between 100 and 400 speed. The lens is a 35mm plastic lens. It's plastic, but it's high quality plastic. The pictures I've got from this camera have been nearly as sharp as I would get from my other point and shoots that have glass lenses on them. The aperture range is 4.5 to f11. f4.5 is a bit of a strange aperture, but it is what it is. And then the only other thing you have here is this big dial in front of the camera, which basically sets all the modes. In the off position, the camera has a lens cover which is engaged, and in that setting, you can't release the shutter. If you go to the first setting, which is fully automatic, in this mode, the camera decides everything, including whether or not to use flash. And if it does use flash, it's got a red eye reduction light that comes on first before the flash is let off. This is probably the mode most people are going to use it in. It works perfectly. 9 times out of 10, this is what I've got it set to, unless you want to use any of the other modes to control some of the situations. The next mode is the flash mode. So it's fully automatic, except the flash will always go off. You might want to use this if, say, you're taking a picture of a person in a backlit situation. So you're outdoors, the sun is behind your subject, so you want to illuminate the face with the flash, then you want to use that. The next mode, which is the no flash mode, does the direct opposite. Basically, it's auto exposure, but the camera will not use the flash. So this will push the camera to use the widest apertures and the slowest shutter speed. Now, the thing with this mode though is if it's underexposed, you're not going to get a warning. It's just going to take the pictures at the lowest setting and you're going to get dark pictures. The final setting is the self-timer mode, which gives you 10 seconds to run and pose and take a picture. Obviously, you can either stand this on a flat surface or you can mount it on a tripod. The camera is battery operated. The battery house is underneath the camera right next to the tripod socket, and it takes 2 AA batteries that are widely available and easy to find. So that's pretty much it. It's a very, very simple, fully automated camera that gives you relatively good results. Again, it's as good as the Olympus AF10. It's not as good as the Contacts and the Yashica cameras that are, selling for hundreds of pounds, but they will get you 90% of the way there, and you're going to love the pictures that you've taken. What is this camera for? I'd say it's for fun times, taking pictures of your friend, taking you to the beach. With a 35mm focal length, obviously that's popular for people doing street photography, but the shutter release and the whine are slightly loud. They're not as loud, again, as the Yashica T4 or T2 cameras, but they do have a bit of volume to them. So if you're trying to take pictures secretly, beware of that. People are going to notice. But if it's in a crowded metropolitan area with cars and trains and things going around, then that's perfectly fine. It's going to be washed out by the noise in the environment. The big pluses with this camera are they're very, very cheap and easy to find on eBay for very, very little money. And of course, we have the massive viewfinder, which is clear and accurate. But the downside of this camera is the exposure range, mainly due to the shutter speed limitations of 1/45 to 1/180, and the limited ISOs that you can use with the camera, which is 100 to 400. I've shot several rolls in this. I've shot one expired film accidentally, but I've also shot a Kodak Portra 400 roll in this camera. I took it along actually to a photo shoot with my friend. Obviously 35mm isn't the best focal length for portraits, but I did get some fun shots with my friend. But I wouldn't recommend it for portraits. But it is a great camera for taking casual pictures of your friends. Don't use slide film in this, because unless you've got the conditions absolutely perfect, you're going to get overexposed and it's going to be obvious. But if you use film like Kodak Portra 400 in this camera or Ektar, then the exposure latitude alone of the film is going to save you from many occasions. And of course, if you use expired film that requires massive overexposure in broad daylight, then you might come out lucky. Well, that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself. Peace.